Do you want your very own buddy to commit war crimes with? Take me home today! The Kirsche Tues plush is on sale now from November 18th through December 2nd. The link is both on screen and in the video description below. Kirsche is made of soft materials to keep you cozy in any foxhole, underground bunker, or even just your warm, comfy bed. Standard correction practices may need to be utilized to get your Kirsche to accurately follow instructions. This product has not yet been evaluated by the FDA, FDIC, or the IRS. This product has not yet been proven to cure depression. If you're having any side effects, including nausea, diarrhea, headache, fatigue, loss of sight, loss of limbs, weaponry, suddenly going missing, upset stomach, waking up with an IV draining your blood for science experiments, blood clot, stroke, heart attack, small caches of food, and drugs appearing inside your walls, call your doctor immediately, but they probably can't help you. It's too late. Bring home your new best friend today and experience the thrill of living with Kirsche.
I'm not going to give money to a company that's like, well, we're gonna remove the DEI language, but we're still committed to the work. It's like, well, then nothing's really going to change, is it? Why would I then give you my money if you are doing more of the same? Like, congratulations! You fell back into not marketing sexual things to children, like you shouldn't have been doing in the first place. Like, I don't...
Because now BlackRock is trotting out this bridge thing that they're trying to get everyone on board with. It's just like, no, this isn't diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is something else. Ooh.
This is belonging.
Come and look at our, it's bridge. It can't be bad. Bridges allow you to cross rivers, therefore it's not bad. It's not DEI, which is an anagram of die. It's a good thing.
But I figured also, before I get into the Bridge Walmart article, I wanted to watch the most recent Lotus Eaters clip, because they mentioned Bridge. Oh, fucking hell yeah, dude. Fucking hell yeah, dude. Check the comments, they're Foxulicious. Yeah, I saw a lot of people mentioning Bridge in the comments. So, their title is Walmart Rolls Back Its DEI Cancer, which, everybody has to have an algorithm sucking title, but they definitely go into the similar things that I've talked about. I watched like 5 or 6 minutes of this before I ran out of time. So most of this is unwatched, but I have watched like the first couple of minutes. They're definitely not rolling back. They're not. And I like I said, I have an article for this as well, but I wanted to look at this. I wanted to be a React Andy for a video,
At the recent US elections, it seems like the tide is turning. A lot of people are turning their back on DEI, and Walmart has become the last economic powerhouse to do so. So
I can agree that the tide is turning as far as like the average human being goes, right? Like more normies are waking up to the subversive language used in like diversity, used in equity, used in inclusion, like how these words don't mean what they think they mean. I think a lot more people are finally realizing that. I don't think the tide is turning as far as corporations go.
So that's really good news. Now, speaking of the U.S. elections, we are going to have this merch for a little while. How is it? How long are we going to have it for?
I think it's till the end of the week.
It's till the end of the week, so definitely check it out and look at our lovely mugs, our lovely T-shirts, the Art of the Grill. We also have plenty of sizes: grill. Small, large, medium, XL, XXL, XXXL. It's lovely. Go to visit our merch.
The XXXL do not function as parachutes, by the way.
Exactly.
But if you bought several, could it function as a parachute?
Right. So, on to our topic. Walmart is about to scrap DEI initiatives. And as you see, some people have a particularly visceral reaction to it. I think this is one of my favorite meltdowns.
That video, that was in... Wasn't it at Trump's inauguration?
I think
or something like that, where he was sworn in or declared the president. I can't remember. It was so long ago. But I remember seeing it.
That was from 2016,
the day it happened,
I believe.
Playing it over and over and over again.
Yeah, it's just classic.
Glorious.
It's also iconic.
You can enjoy these sorts of silly, low quality moments every now and then.
Right. So let's see what Walmart had on its diverse and inclusion statement last year. This is from, I think, September 2023. They say, we believe we're stronger as a company and a country when all people are included, heard, and empowered. We expect all associates to genuinely embrace diversity and inclusion so that we don't accept our differences but celebrate them. all the time and within every team.
So this basically, right, even if it's from September, I think he said, this is just bridge language. We expect all associates to genuinely embrace diversity and inclusion. You will become a part of the cult, even if you don't notice, even if you disagree with us. We're going to sneak in those DEI vegetables, as it were. And so we don't just accept our differences, but celebrate them all the time and within every team. They are getting rid of their DEI positions. They're renaming their DEI positions. They're making it a part of everyone at the company. You will do the work at work, and you will do the work when you go home. You will eat the DEI. You will eat the bugs.
Right, so that was last year.
It's a little bit like Big Brother, isn't it? I know the 1984 illusions are probably overdone, but it's not enough that you just say you love Big Brother. It's not enough just to say the words, or to take the oath.
Celebrate.
You have to genuinely believe it deep down in your core, in your soul.
And this is, again, like, he's completely fucking correct here. This is exactly what all of the people coming out this year have been saying when they're just like, DEI isn't working, DEI isn't doing what it's supposed to, DEI is seeing all this pushback because it's not working right now. They're not saying to get rid of DEI, they're saying it doesn't go far enough. The companies, the people in the companies, they're giving lip service, they're doing a performative work, they're not actually believing in it, they're not actually adhering to it. So you need to actually believe in it.
Like you have to believe it.
I don't know. I think it's way more Machiavellian than that.
Okay.
We'll see. Okay, to build on our work in this
How could it
space
be
and
more
aggressively
Machiavellian
drive
than
change
that?
inside and outside our company, in June 2020, we announced that we would develop strategies and invest resources to increase fairness, equity, and justice. Yeah, because this is genuinely what businesses care about.
It is a weird development where a place like Walmart is saying we need to get involved in justice for some reason.
True.
It's like we sell you things. So anyway, have
About
you
that
ever
justice.
heard of
Equity.
Yeah,
Have you ever heard of diversity, Josh?
yeah.
We want to sell you equity.
I think the diversity might be affecting their profit margin after the 2020 riots.
So some of the good things that they are about to do include removal of inappropriate sexual and or transgender products marketed at children,
Which,
closing
like,
of
shouldn't
the
have
Racial
happened.
Equity Center, removal of the term Latinx from all official communication, racial equity training to be discontinued.
Can I just say, like, I'm glad if they're actually removing Latinx, but when you're talking about, like, oh yeah, we're winning, they're getting rid of DEI, and one of their things is specifically removal of the term Latinx, it's like, really? They couldn't have mentioned anything more poignant, more relevant, maybe? You know?
Removal of the term DEI while ensuring a respectful and supportive environment. So that
Once again, removal of the term DEI. In Robby Starbuck's video, in the video itself, the text differed from the text in his tweet, and he also said that they were removing DEI, not the term DEI. And I think it's very important to recognize that they're saying removal of the term. This is B.R.I.D.G.E. This is removing DEI in its visible form so that they can continue the work, circumventing lawsuits, circumventing activists noticing what they're doing, circumventing us average people noticing what they're doing.
that seems like a step to the right direction.
Yeah. Removing inappropriate sexual and or transgender products marketed at children. Yeah. Yeah, that was a crime to do that in the first place.
I think this is the bare minimum for a company to be able to shop there. Removing this stuff. It's like, oh right, you're not forcing strange things onto vulnerable people. Great.
I would agree. However, I'm not going to give money to a company that's like, well, we're gonna remove the DEI language, but we're still committed to the work. It's like, well, then nothing's really going to change, is it? Why would I then give you my money if you are doing more of the same? Like, congratulations, you fell back into not marketing sexual things to children. like you shouldn't have been doing in the first place. Like, I don't...
So Walmart are putting the woke away.
Well,
It's one tick in AA's column against Aaron McIntyre.
I want to say I accept neither's framework generally speaking, but I think they're not going to be put away.
No, in general terms, I don't think so either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me just give you a list here of businesses that have backed off on DEI policies. It says CNN, DoorDash, Ford, Google, Harley Davidson, John Deere, Tractor Supply Company, Jack Daniels owner Brown Foreman, Lyft, Microsoft, Snapchat, Tesla, Wayfair, Zoom.
There are some more companies on here that I haven't looked into, so I can't say for every single company on the list that they're not removing it with 100% confidence. But obviously they've listed some things here that we know have not removed DEI, like Jack Daniels, like Lowe's, like Microsoft, right? Like Zoom especially. Zoom has been in a bunch of these articles doubling down on this work is imperative and we will continue to do it. Microsoft literally had Cheryl Dijja, the CEO of B.R.I.D.G.E, at the Cannes Lion Festival on their panel talking about the work needs to continue, just change the language.
So there are many.
Just to say quickly on to say that, I must say, it would only be to an extent though.
Yeah.
Like Google putting woke away, well, it hasn't entirely, has it?
Yeah.
It might have dialed it down a bit.
Donated
but
the most to Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
Loads of
Which
those
is a
companies.
pretty tangible thing. It's
Loads
also
of
what-
those companies in that list, I was like, have they? Have they? They might have dialed it down, but they're not. They haven't become based, have they?
Well, DEI
Haven't become
has also
nationalists.
been rebranded, hasn't it? Because now BlackRock is trotting out this bridge thing that they're trying to get everyone on board with. It's just like, no, this isn't diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is something else.
This is
Ooh.
belonging.
Come and look at our, it's bridge. It can't be bad. Bridges allow you to cross rivers, therefore it's not bad. It's not DEI, which is an anagram of die. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
But it is basically the same stuff.
It's
Yep.
bridge nationalism. Right. So how did
Bridge is, again, he's completely correct, right? He's completely correct, but it's pushing it further because they don't want us to know what's happening. Again, just like in Gamergate 1, we laughed at these people, we assumed nobody would be dumb enough to take them seriously, and they just kind of were able to go underground, were able to join gaming companies, were able to make the cultural impact that they wanted by ruining all of these things over the past decade that we enjoyed as gamers. And everyone's just like, how did this even happen? How did you get here? And it's like, well, we didn't pay enough attention. Bridge is an anagram for Big Red Communism confirmed. Oh my god. You hate how they keep co-opting words you like.
this happen? So one of the catalysts for this is Tennessee filmmaker Robby Starbuck, who was preparing a documentary about it, about the DEI policies on Walmart, and contacted them. But apparently they seem to think, well, you might have a point, and they decided to change things. So most probably he is not going to release it, and he makes several announcements. He says Walmart is ending their woke policies. I can now exclusively...
Can I just say, does it strike anyone else as odd, right? Like, Starbuck had nothing to do with Bud Light or Target losing their millions of dollars, right? They fucked up all on their own. And if these companies are as committed to DEI as they claim, obviously they don't like the public eye being drawn to their policies, especially after the affirmative action ruling. But how are companies so terrified, apparently, of this man that all he has to do is tell an employee, yeah, I'm planning on, releasing something about your company and its DEI practices. And without him even releasing anything, they just go, whoa, we'll just get rid of the DEI now. We're going to stop. We don't release anything about our DEI. Don't do that. Or we're going to throw it out. That's a little strange to me. That's a little weird.
tell you what's changing and how it happened. And last week he had a talk with executives at Walmart, and he was doing a story about wokeness. Instead, we had productive conversations to find solutions. So it worked. you could say that, conservative activism worked and it actually yielded results. I would say this is good news. And they say that, and he says the company also reportedly pledged to end its racial equity center, though the company noted to Starbuck that the program was established in 2020 as a special 5-year initiative.
Oh, 5-year plan.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
5-year plans. You love to see them.
What they did there.
Exactly.
Who's the CEO? Joseph Stalin? Just wearing a different mustache?
I must say that I particularly dislike the use of the word discontinue rather than why not say stop? They say Walmart will discontinue.
Because they're not actually stopping it. Discontinued is another way to weasel word around what they're actually doing. Much like the way that they said they're stopping the use of the term DEI. That does not mean that they are stopping DEI. They are just changing the language. And in some of the comments, people were like, actually, that's not bridge language, that's Sherm language. Sherm and Bridge are pushing the same exact thing. Sherm is under that conglomerate, man. Bridge has said we need to change the language. Sherm came out after some companies had already done so and said, we're changing the language. We need to, stop talking about equity. It's become a dangerous word. People feel excluded. So we're gonna focus on inclusion and belonging. We're gonna focus on that, and we're also going to try and make white men feel included because we need them to be part of the picture if we're going to win this ideological war. They're trying to trick us. Don't be tricked.
The use of DEI as a term while ensuring a respectful and supportive environment. The company reportedly told Starbuck, our focus is on belonging for all associates and customers. And one other thing that they did is that they used DEI also for suppliers. And they say that, for instance, they try to have a more diverse pool of suppliers, and diversity was an issue for selecting suppliers, which is mad if you think about it. Because as a company, you want to basically give the best product you can at the cheapest price possible. So why on earth?
And the way that they trick people with the supplier diversity as well is they'll say something like, well, we want to branch out into the Colombian market, and obviously if we're going to have a warehouse in Colombia, we want to appeal to the diverse Colombian audience. We can't just hire white guys. And it's like, well, yeah, obviously if you set up a warehouse in Colombia, the bulk of the people working there probably gonna be Colombian. But that's not what's actually happening when it comes to supplier quote-unquote diversity. They're prioritizing like women-owned businesses, black-owned businesses. They're doing things by like an affirmative action scale. Again, it's another way to use subversive language and to have normal people who don't understand the doublespeak that they use agree that, yeah, this actually is a good thing, Yeah, if you're going to open a thing in Colombia, why would you hire white guys? You'd hire the Colombians who live there. Obviously.
Earth would a business care about the diversity of the suppliers?
It got to the point where they had, not necessarily Walmart, but other companies, they had signs saying black-owned business, white-owned business, woman-owned business, which...
When I was looking at stuff at, I think it was Macy's on stream with you guys a few months ago, I pointed it out. I was like, why does this say that this is a black woman-owned necklace? I was like, that's really strange because, like, I understand what you're trying to do, but you also know that there are people who are going to see that and be like, well, I was going to buy it, but now I'm not.
Unintentionally based, I suppose, but it's probably not the direction you want to go if you want to make money.
So it's a good move. I think that this is a step to the right direction. Although I must say, I think that
Colombia hates DEI. Fuck it. I was just using Colombia as an example of like I could have said anything, right? I could have said Uruguay. I could have said Argentina. I could have said Nigeria. I just picked a country that isn't majority white people.
Always the devil lies in the detail, and I will specifically be patient and be cautiously optimistic, because when they're talking about a respectful and supportive environment, the question is, what do you mean by it, and what are...
They mean that they're going to continue doing the same exact thing that they have been, we are no longer using the term diversity, equity, and inclusion, but we are committed to belonging. We need everyone to feel included so we can have a respectful and diverse workplace. It's the same thing. Do not believe their weasel words.
You're going to do in order to ensure a respectful and supportive environment? Because if what they're going to say is that we're not going to calling it DEI, we're going to call it somewhat differently, well, that's not of a big change.
It's not.
The whole thing is to be absolutely clear about what it is that you're doing, rather than just saying abstractly and vaguely that I want to ensure respect, support, and peaceful coexistence.
They're being vague on purpose because they're counting on the legions of people who don't understand that this is Marxist ideology. This is Gramsci tactics. This is Leninist tactics, right? Like, they don't count on people understanding their doublespeak and just accepting what they're saying, right? We will no longer use DEI, but we're committed to a respectful workplace where everyone belongs. They're not getting rid of DEI. They're telling you blankly, if you understand the doublespeak, that they're not getting rid of it. They're counting on people not understanding that's what they're doing.
The devil is always in the details. It's always a matter of policies,
Gay
whether it's
Stalinism.
company policies or the policies of a nation.
Yeah,
right.
Respectful and supportive of whom?
Exactly. And in what ways?
The fact that Walmart had their own racial equity centre. What a madness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, in generations to come, I hope, people look back on stuff like that. And it will be weird.
I
It'll
agree.
be really
I
weird.
hope so.
It'll be like photographs of stuff from the 19th or 20th century, which are just alien to us now. Like, they had that, they did that.
It's a very strange thing for a society that's sort of obsessed with merit to then have a little blip in its history where it's just like, actually, we're about race now again for a little bit. Just a few years, and then we're going to go back to what we did before.
Well,
It's
I don't know. I mean, I guess it is technically a blip, right? But considering how long, like, the subversion in America has been going on, it feels more like this has been a sustained campaign rather than like, yeah, let's go back to that, as it were. Because America was a, unironically, very racist country around World War II, right? Shortly after World War II was still a racist country. We didn't get rid of, like, Jim Crow laws until, what, the 50s or some shit, right? So, like, it's not like a let's go back to that. It was a, oh, America has many races. We can exploit that. We exploit America on racial lines, not just between men and women. I can't do a Russian accent, but pretend I tried.
crazy. And here we have, for instance, a really good indication of how our world and our society has completely changed. Because, for instance, we have here medical directors are being asked to play a prominent role within the leadership team to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, and to help identify and address the effects of racism, sexism, xenophobia, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, and other forms of discrimination on the health and well-being of veterans in HBPC and of HBPC stuff. So,
and this isn't surprising either, like that there are more government documents coming out about how the government has been pushing DEI. I don't remember exactly what stream it was on, but I did read a declassified CIA DEI initiative. I think it was in 2022 that they declassified it, so it was only a couple of years ago. And it basically told you, yeah, we use DEI for hiring in government positions. We use it for the military. We specifically target minority communities for this. So it's not surprising at all.
This is for federal positions and a medical director.
exactly, yeah.
So I'm a doctor of racism. I'm going to fix your racism. I'm going to fix your
Can I get a PhD in racism? Is that possible? I'd go to college for that.
xenophobia.
But also,
Well, they're apparently not going to be able to fix the ableism though, because they can't cure that apparently.
but also it shows how DEI people don't care about the outcome. And we see this on every sector. Let's take the police, for instance. The police is supposed to guard to ensure public security.
But do you know why they don't care about the outcome of their immediate policies? Do you know why their immediate policies do not matter? Because to a Marxist, the ends justify the means, which is also why companies have been forgoing the short-term profit for long-term cultural victory. They see these losses in the short term as negligible or even necessary to meet their long-term cultural takeover goals.
Some reason public security is being our sentiment of public safety is being decreasing. People feel less and less public safe. But we do have virtue signaling police forces saying, yeah, we are combating diversity and we have a more diverse police force.
Fear is an easy way to control a population. So if you, as the police force or the government that employs them, essentially tell the police or have the police stand down in the face of citizens actually needing some kind of security, those citizens will eventually have a state of constant fear of everything around them because they know no help is coming. We had that woman earlier this year who had her ex-boyfriend trying to break into her house. She called 911. They were like, well, have you tried telling him to go home? And she's like, well, obviously, but he's not going home. He's still trying to break in. And the 911 operator was like, well, we can't really help you. The boyfriend broke in. He raped her. She unfortunately suffered because the police are no longer here to help you. And we have good men who get punished for helping in situations like that. So if you are in constant fear, you will end up giving capitulations to the government, right? You will end up agreeing to sign away your freedom so that you may have some respite from the fear that you feel. And that is what the government wants.
Right, so here we have also a segment that I did with Josh called Queering National Security, talking about one of the last really strong pushes for DEI policies in the nuclear sector, saying actually that the nuclear sector requires more queer perspective in order to heighten the public security of the nation against terrorism attacks.
You will trade fear for safety. I was like, I think I don't know a lot about the UK's more recent history, obviously, but I do not believe that they've been able to implement incredibly 1984 restrictive censorship policies willy-nilly forever, right? At some point, something probably had to have happened where people were like, well, we need more kind of censorship, we need more kind of this security, we need a more watchful eye. And then eventually these people were just kind of like, well, we've already gone this far, let's keep going. And now the government can just implement whatever the fuck it wants, and people have been eating it for years. And now we're seeing the tide turning. I hope you British people can take back your country. How about we tell the government to go fuck itself? True. It's a vile thing to do for a person who's supposed to help you. Like I said before, if someone is from the government and they tell you you're here to help, you should not feel relief. You should feel terrified. The government does not help you. You start calling yourself non-binary or put on a wig to get a leg up. I mean, do it. If you can't, you gotta play the game sometimes, right? You just want to find work again, yeah? Why rely on something that takes 10 minutes when you can rely on the Glock and it only takes 2 seconds? I don't understand why people wouldn't want to be armed, I'm going to be honest. I was like, I could be wrong about the state of the UK, right? Like I said, I don't know much about their recent history, and by recent I mean probably like last 100 years or so, as it were. I only know about the wartime efforts. So like maybe it was just the government imposing this shit continuously, and somehow people were just like, yeah, okay, I don't really need that. I don't really need those freedoms, as it were. I don't know, but it seems like that should be how this works, right? The populace, for some reason, has been put into a state of fear, decides to give up some of their freedoms, and then eventually the government can just take advantage of that and continuously do it and not get much pushback for a while. People have been taught guns bad forever, unfortunately. Unfortunately, the UK doesn't allow firearms, so people are forced to take whatever the government gives them. Was there ever a point in the UK's history where you were allowed to own firearms? Was that ever a thing in that country? No? What? Yes? Okay. Alright. The Tory party has been captured by Labour a long time ago. Yeah, World War II. World War II? Alright. 90s? Or are you confusing them with Australia? I think that might have been Australia that confiscated firearms in like the 90s or so. Like 100 years ago! Americans have guns, but Patriot Act is still a thing. Yeah, we've had some shit as well. I'm not saying we haven't. The Patriot Act is a very good example of us deciding to give up some of our freedoms for temporary safety, and then the government being able to slowly encroach more on that year after year. Theresa May was a Remainer and Labour simp. Farmers also used to own a lot of firearms, then the government said no. I kind of would like to learn about that. How did if people in Britain were allowed to own firearms at some point, how did they get convinced to give them up? How did that happen? I would like to learn about this.
This is absolute madness. Right, and the thing here is that we have a really good... DEI doesn't work. It doesn't work. We are constantly saying it doesn't. Some people need more of a research to find out that basically we can't have everyone happy, and we cannot have a world that is based on saying that everyone should be happy, and if they're not happy, the evil reason is racism and all sorts of negative things. It just doesn't work. And a lot of media outlets were invested into silencing stories that this wouldn't work. We have here an excellent thread by Colin Wright, who is talking about how the New York Times and Business killed stories at the 11th hour, covering new research on DEI pedagogy and its negative psychological impacts. And as they say, the study showed that certain DEI practices increase hostility, authoritarian tendencies, and agreement with extreme rhetoric. Definitely check this thread out.
I have that in a tab somewhere because I wanted to bring it up and I think I just forgot about it. Following the Dunblane massacre, the British government passed the Firearms Amendment Act in 1997 and the Firearms Amendment No. 2 Act 1997, defining short firearms as Section 5 prohibited weapons, which effectively banned private possession of handguns, almost. So it maybe was also in the 90s that the British did that, along with the Aussies? That's kind of weird. How many... I guess from an American perspective, this might sound normal, but to anyone else, it might sound like a weird question. How many people died in the Dunblane massacre? You can still own long guns with provisions. America needs to disband the ATF and repeal the NFA. Absolutely. Good evening, sir. In your country, guns were legal, but Adolf made them illegal, so government later decided, hey, that's good for us, so now you have to ask the government to own a gun. You can own a lot of shotguns and firearms, but it's a lot of hoops to jump through. I can only imagine. Like, if I lived in an oppressive society like the UK, I'd probably want a firearm, though, so the hoops would be something I'm willing to jump through. Would you want current-day British people to have guns? They're dangerous enough with just knives. Well, I don't think those are exactly British people.
And we have here people all across the political spectrum and from all kinds of groups saying that DEI is not working. Anyone paying attention?
No. See, the thing that he's wrong with there is saying across all political lines and all different groups. That's just not true. The people who agree with DEI, the people who are on the left side of things here, when they say that DEI isn't working, they're not saying, like you, to get rid of it. They're saying it does not go far enough. And typically, if you let them talk long enough and don't cut them off, that is exactly what they will say word for word.
New DEI was toxic. A new study shows just how toxic. This is from Free Black Thought. DEI, it failed to reduce prejudice towards oppressed groups, increased prejudice against supposed oppressor groups, made people see prejudice in interactions in the absence of actual prejudice, and made people want to punish perpetrators. And
they're not saying that because DEI is bad. They're saying the way that DEI has been implemented has been performative and not a real commitment to the work. Real DEI has not been tried, comrade.
Also, we have Brianna Wu. She says that she was actively pushing for this, but at some point, data suggested that it doesn't work.
One of the things that really shook my beliefs was asking myself why DEI programs don't work, something study after study has shown. I'd very publicly advocated for the progressive approach to DEI, but the science shows it doesn't lead to a better workplace. It turns out the way we did it in the 90s is more effective way. Stress that we are all in this together and that we all need to get along instead of focusing on grievances. Focus on mutual respect. And of course, that makes sense. Not only is it a more American mindset, but it doesn't substitute one power hierarchy for another. I mean, this shit was still being pushed in the 90s, but I would agree that in the 90s, people were not as, I guess, race conscious as they've been made to be today. It wasn't like you immediately thought DEI if you saw a mixed friend group in media. You had, like, white families in commercials. You had TV shows where there weren't, like, token stereotype characters. People were able to make offensive jokes and didn't have their lives ruined for it. I think things were just a little bit simpler because Marxists had not gotten to the point of takeover that they're at now, because that was decades ago. And giving people the space to do things they wanted instead of this weird shit now. Yeah, agree.
Right, so I think we should talk a bit about the issue of triumphalism, because I think it's a bit misplaced. Any kind of triumphalism is usually misplaced because it ignores the historical context.
Might be worth defining what you mean by that.
Yes.
I think I know what you mean, but...
Just gloating that we've already won.
Yeah, we've won. And for instance,
I'm really bad with names, so I'm not going to remember his name, but this guy on the left here, has anybody ever mentioned how he has Superman hair? He has, like, the same exact hairstyle as, like, when Clark Kent turns into Superman.
A tweet that seems to me to be the most indicative of what I'm talking about.
Wait, you mean Piers Morgan isn't giving cutting-edge, insightful political commentary, Stelios?
There are a lot of people who are pushing forward this triumphalist narrative that says wokeism is dead, identity politics is dead, virtue signaling is dead. A lot of politicians are doing. You would sort of...
Foxu moment. Look, all I'm saying is when I go on, if they also want to be cartoon people, he could be a Superman.
I've expected from Republican politicians. I mean, Donald Trump Jr. is doing it, but he's a political actor. He's not a journalist.
Good to see Andy Ngo there saying, no, they're not.
Yeah.
in the replies there.
He's also, Piers Morgan continues, says, Trump's massive win was a total repudiation of all the far left's progressive but actually regressive crap. Common sense will now return to a world that had gone nuts, and thank God for that. Common sense never went anywhere.
I don't think that Trump being elected means that, like, wokeism is immediately going to die, if you want to call it that, right? Trump is not going to be able to single-handedly destroy the Marxist infiltration of America, or the West in general, as it were. So, like, it's a good thing he was elected. I'm happy he was elected. Hopefully he can make some of the changes that he wants to make, and that can set us on the correct path for actually getting rid of it, right? And in that way, maybe you could say it is dead. Even if it's not going to die in the next 4 years, we will be already spraying it with chemotherapy. So eventually it will die, and this is the pivotal moment. Perhaps. I definitely hope so. I definitely would like to believe so, because I want to see this shit gone. I don't want to see American ideals pushed aside for shitty communist ideology.
Common sense is just a propaganda word. I find it really annoying when people say common sense, because I think the only thing that's held in common is stupidity, not sense.
Oh no, I agree with him, but I fucking say common sense all the time. You can't help it, man. You're so used to it. I was like, I know common sense ain't that common, but it's like sometimes you see shit and you're like, please, you can't be that stupid, right?
Yeah, so I want to say something. It looks like when we're looking at it, we're saying, okay, people must be mad in order to push forward these narratives. But I think that there's an underlying logic that if we understand, it may reveal to us that this isn't going anywhere.
You think it might be a generational long term? Yeah, no, I mean, like, you're not going to get rid of communist subversion in 4 years ever. I'm pretty sure Bezmenov had said that, like, even if we had started in the 80s, it will still take us, like 20 years, several generations to actually have American ideals completely replace the subversion that had happened. So it is going to take a while, but if we get rid of all of these people, not in a, like, mass grave way, but in a, like, you're fired from your job way. If we get rid of all these people, that is when the tide starts turning. That will be when it is essentially dead, right? Because even if we're still trying to reverse the propagandized and the brainwashed, we have started educating the newer generations with American idealism, with Western ideals, getting rid of communist ones.
It isn't going anywhere, and any kind of rhetoric of the sort that wokeism is dead is actually going to have very negative effects. It's going to make people less vigilant, less and more prone to rest on their own laurels and say, right, we won, now everything is going to work magically. It's not. Actually, now it's one major victory. I'm talking about Trump's victory, but things are really now starting. They're now beginning. It's the beginning of a cultural victory. It's not the end of it.
Absolutely,
I would like to believe it's the beginning of a cultural victory, but while DEI is still running as rampant as it is, I can't call it the beginning of a victory in good faith. I can call it the beginning of a changing tide that will hopefully lead to victory. That is what I would like to see. But it very much depends on what happens in these 4 years, in my opinion.
I can say we've barely begun to push back, really. It's far, far, far too early to count your chickens.
Yeah.
Wokeism is dead, identity politics is dead, virtue signalling is dead. Well, not in the cabinet room, it's not.
No.
Not in Sir Keir's government, it's not.
When will virtue signalling ever die?
Yeah,
that will never die.
Yeah.
Also, identity politics will never die as long as human beings have genetics.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is a nonsense.
It's like a war on drugs or the war on terrorism or war on identity politics, a war on virtue
evil.
signaling. It's a war on something inherent in the human condition.
War on water.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
screw
virtue
water.
signaling will never die. People will always do that.
Mm-hmm. Just accept that it's part of human nature, and you don't have to agree with it. You can advise people not do it, but don't delude yourself and think it's going to disappear entirely.
That's exactly why I'm saying that this has the exact opposite effects. When you're telling people, okay, right, we won, good won, so there's no more evil in the world. No, it's not going to work. So
I'm so glad to hear them saying the exact same stuff that I've been saying. Like, yes, be happy when you get a victory like Trump winning. That's amazing. That is great. That's the beginning of us turning things around. But don't just, like, give up and look away. Much like people trying to celebrate, all of these companies hiding their DEI instead of being open with it, that's not even, like, a small win that you can celebrate because nothing is changing. They're not actually doing anything. They're just saying, yes, we're going to change the DEI language. Please believe that means we're getting rid of it, dear stupid people. And everyone's like, yeah, we're winning! So I'm glad to hear the Lotus Eaters saying what I've been saying instead of parroting what other people are. Oh, that makes me very happy. Once you have wind in your sails, you still need to adjust and steer. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's like I want actual wins to be celebrated. I don't want false idols to be worshipped. If you're celebrating a win that's not really a win, all you're really doing is like a baseless placation.
It's good if people turn their back to this rhetoric and learn to distinguish between political statements of, triumph when upon a victory, which are, good, but they are not to be taken literally. And I think that there's an underlying logic, which is essentially the following. Wokeness isn't going anywhere because fundamentally it is the perfect tool to divide and conquer. And in societies of...
This is kind of why I dislike the term wokeness, right? Because it's like you're describing communist tactics. You're describing what the Marxists do. Why not call them as they are? Why not call them the Marxists that they are? Why use wokeness? It sounds unserious.
The Western type, the best way to dominate people both in their nation and country and also in their workforce is to impose a kind of framework where everyone is guilty by default.
Yes.
Where everyone is so scared to upset anyone else, and everyone is potentially someone who is going to be deemed a far-right racist because they didn't say good morning to their colleague, or because they criticize the government. It's the most powerful weapon to to dominate people, because also it's covert. You could say that in societies that praise freedom, liberty, reason, wisdom, whatever, and virtue, the kind of infiltration and subversion didn't work when it was overt, but this is covert. This is actually...
And they're making it even more covert now. They're trying to obfuscate what they're doing again, much like how equality morphed into equity, much like how not being racist was no longer good enough. They made up anti-racist, right? It's just becoming more covert because that's all they can do. Nobody is ever going to buy into these things if they are honest about what they're doing.
Covert operation to completely subvert you could say a lot of classical liberal insights by saying that, right, the proper relation of society and of government isn't the idea of having a government that is supposed to owe you, that has obligation towards its people to safeguard their rights. It's only permission. So what wokeism does is, both in the workforce and in people's country, it turns rights into permissions. So when you have really subjective rules within your workforce, your workplace, and your country, you're at the mercy of whoever is administering those rules. That's why I think wokeism isn't going anywhere, and people should definitely be vigilant against it. Now, of course, one of its surface forms may change, and here we may have some indications about it, but that doesn't mean that the underlying rationale is going to change. And we have here some trends of word use in academia, and you see, for instance, that after the turn of the 21st century, there's a spike in the word use of terms like transphobia.
I was like, way more than just a spike, man. There was like fucking nothing for the entire graph. And then it was just massive mountain. Holy crap.
Islamophobia.
It's like you can pinpoint exactly when they were like, oh, we can use this to sow even more discontent. It's time. It's time for a new divisive tactic. You can see it with the Islamophobia graph too. Except there's for some reason a spike way down here. I was like, what the heck? I can't read what year that is because I'm hella leaned back right now from my neck, but what the heck?
There's also in racism, sexism, and words like that. But mostly, if you see, it's transphobia and Islamophobia.
1950.
And this is a good indicator. That's not an indicator of support necessarily, because word use just indicates discourse, but academia isn't the place of where ideal discourse is taking place. And we should...
Can I just say quickly?
Yeah, of course.
A couple of those graphs.
Can't believe Kirsche is on the lean. Maury Calliope is my favorite rapper.
Very, very interesting. The sexism one, like sort of third wave feminism. Before that, just sort of wasn't much of a thing. The transphobia thing, completely fabricated in the early 2000s. Just
you can pinpoint exactly when on this graph that communists started using feminists in the United States as useful idiots, exactly like they did in the USSR.
Tiny number of people are actually trans, let alone transphobic.
Well, people didn't even know it existed back then, did they?
Well, it's just such a tiny number of people that it applies to. But the interesting one is Islamophobia, and I've said this before, I'm pretty sure, and for a lot of the younger people, the Zoomers, don't know this, but before 9/11, in Britain anyway, I think in most of the West, Islam was not a big thing. It just wasn't a big thing. Our countries weren't flooded with...
Okay, but like, why was there a lot of Islamophobia in the 1950s? I can't think of seeing a single Muslim in any like media from America in the 1950s. What am I missing, right? What am I missing? 1950s probably coincides with the various pan-Arab nationalist movements that swept over the Middle East post-World War II. Potentially, I would know nothing about that. The creation of Israel. Why would the creation of Israel cause Americans to be Islamophobic, as it were? Well, the Soviets infiltrated the Middle Eastern nations? Oh god, that's right. Think you could count the number of Muslims in Europe on your hands in 1950? Well, I mean, if Europe was for Europeans, that would just be normal. Middle East is a very messy situation. You stay out of it, yeah, this is very true. Supporting Israel would be Islamophobic. Okay, interesting. All right, I got you. I see you. That is interesting spike for there, if that's the possible answer.
People from Islamic countries, Islam itself as a religion, as a creed, didn't crop up, didn't come up. Straight after 9/11, people didn't know that usually Muslims don't wear turbans. Usually that's more of a Sikh thing, sometimes a Hindu thing. Anyway, I
still remember. Unfortunately, there were a lot of Sikhs that got hate because people are a little bit dumb. Can't tell the difference.
Turban is not synonymous with being a Muslim, right? People didn't even know that. People were going around in some punitive attacks against people wearing turbans because they thought they were Muslim.
Oh, he said the same thing.
That's how little Islam had an impact, any sort of day-to-day impact on particularly British, I would say, or Western culture and civilization. It just wasn't on the radar. I mean, you can see in that graph, look, before the year 2000, almost nothing. Almost nothing. The guy that owned the corner shop, or your doctor, might be a Dr. Patel or kindly Mr. Khan in the corner shop. That was it. No one talked about Islam. No one knew anything really about Islam. It wasn't on the radar. And that graph speaks volumes to me, because that's what I remember. Before 9/11, it wasn't a
Sikhs, many can identify them differently because of stupidity. I mean, all you really need to do is look at the person and think, oh, he has a cool sword, or, oh, I'm already dead, right? That's a good way to identify which one you're looking at.
Thing. And then ever since 9/11, it's everything. It's like you can't get away from it.
But the point is that there is discourse about all these ideas, and all these movements, let's say, and what are being represented here are not compatible. So what wokeness does is it says, okay, we are going to take incompatible groups and we're going to put them in the same area, let's say, whether it's the workplace or it's society at large, and we're going to create chaos, and big government will be needed in order to mitigate that chaos. And people should never forget Judith Butler saying Hamas and Hezbollah are social movements that are progressive, that are on the left, that are part of the global left. And why?
I don't know who Judith Butler is, so I genuinely can't tell if that's a man or a woman in that picture. I want to say it's a man, but then again, he kind of looks like Ellen DeGeneres, so it's like, and his name is Judith. If that's a man, I can't tell. I don't know who that is.
Did I say this? Because this reminds me of the old Marxist maxim that communists should infiltrate all kind of revolutionary movements and unite them under in one goal. So this isn't going anywhere, and people who are saying that wokeism is dead, or identity politics is dead, or it's never gonna come back.
I don't understand. How would Hamas and Hezbollah be a progressive global left movement? How can a culture that is basically as traditional as one can get, in a way, I'm a little confused.
I think that they're seriously mistaken. It's good that Walmart is rolling back its program, but people should remain...
Because they both hate things that leftists hate. I was told for decades it was the right wing who hates the Jews. What's happening? I can't tell who's Jewing who anymore, man.
vigilant against this disastrous policies of the sort.
Anyone who doesn't know, Judith Butler, pure filth.
Apparently we're supposed to hate Judith Butler. I don't know who they are.
Look back on the first portion of the 21st century and wonder why the West, or the world to some degree, seemed to have lost its mind. It's people like Butler.
Yeah, probably,
that
based on what they said in that
exactly
tweet.
People like her.
Yeah.
And the people that agreed with her and went along with what she said.
Is there anyone that embodies sort of boomer chaos than Judith Butler?
And also, I have friends
chaos.
who you'd say are on the Democrat side, who told me that basically they read it, they tried to give it the benefit of the doubt. The book she has written, it's all nonsense.
Yeah, of course.
It's more destructive. She doesn't even put anything positive on its own.
Well, it's like, wasn't Sargon a classical liberal? Right, now he's a bit more conservative.
She just says other theories aren't perfect. Well, okay. Well, you really illuminated us.
I hope you appreciated that segment from the podcast to the Lotus
it's already
Eaters. And if you
over.
want to see what else we're up to, you can follow
That felt like it
Connor and
went by
Harry's
really
series,
fast.
Comics Corner, this time.